In this lesson, we will be studying the history of embroidery, the tools and materials used. What is embroidery? It is the ornamentation of textiles and other items with needlework not only for home use and decoration but also for offices. The term embroidery is an English word derived from ancient French embroidery, meaning border and edge. Embroidery started when the Netherlanders brought embroidery into the Orient in the 15th century. During the Middle Ages, the embroidery achieved its highest development. During their leisure time, the nuns in the convents were the first to create articles with embroidery work. Embroideries were done by hand in the beginning, but with the advent of technology and the invention of sewing machine, people are now engaged in the embroidery work due to the industry's rapid growth, elegance of designs, and fineness of workmanship. Let us discuss the different embroidery tools and materials. First is gauge. It is a tool used for short distance measurement. It is a ruler, typically 6 inches long, used for measuring short spaces. It is typically a metal scale with a sliding pointer. Next is the tape measure. It is a tool used for measuring distance of more than 1 foot of materials. It consists of a ribbon of cloth, plastic, fiberglass, or metal strip with linear measurement markings. Another tool is the thimble. It is a small, pitted cup worn on the finger that protects the finger from being pricked or poked by a needle while sewing. It prevents discomfort while sewing by providing a barrier between fingertips and the blunt end of a needle. Embroidery hoop or stiletto. It is a tool made from wood, bone, metal, or plastic used to produce eyelets in the fabric for embroidery. It is often used to keep the fabric stretched as stitches on the pattern are added to the embroidery. Next is the embroidery scissors. It is a tiny, sharp, and pointed tool used for fine work to trim scallops, cut threads, and cut large eyelets. Embroidery scissors is smaller compared to the usual shears. Needle threader is a tool used to thread a needle for sewers with poor eyesight. Needle threaders are invaluable tools for anyone who works with needles, thread, yarn, embroidery floss, or the like. Next is pounce. Let us watch.
Pounce is the traditional method of transferring a design onto fabric for embroidery. It uses a pricker, usually a small needle loaded into a handle. We use our tambour handles as they're very comfortable to hold. Holding it upright, 90 degrees to the paper, punch a series of holes along the lines of your guide. Not so close as they make one big cut, but close enough for an accurate pattern. Then, taking the pounce, which is a fine powder, and a felt rubber, pass the pounce through the pricked holes in your draft. The pounce will leave the design on your fabric, which if you're happy with, you can then trace with a pencil. If you're not, then the pounce will easily fall out of the fabric with a few firm bangs. If you've enjoyed this pro tip, give us a like. And if you'd like to see more, then check out the Pro Tips playlist on the London Embroidery School channel.
Another tool is the needle. It is a small piece of steel where one end has a fine point and a little gap like an eye at the other. There are different types of needle, namely crewel, chenille, and tapestry. Crewel needle are sharp-pointed, medium length, with wide eyes for quick threading, and used in most embroidery stitching. Crewel embroidery generally appears more three-dimensional and puffy because of the thickness of the yarn used. Chenille needles are still sharp needle but thicker and longer and has wider eyes. It is the style of needle appropriate for embroidery that is worked with heavier yarns. Its sizes are 13 to 26. They're a bit heavier than embroidery needles, so naturally, they may make larger holes in your fabric depending on the size you choose. Last is the tapestry needle. It is a needle similar in size to chenille but blunt instead of pointed that makes it perfect for embroidery thread counting and even for the needle point. They are ideally used for needlepoint or cross-stitch where the holes are large enough that you don't have to pierce. Another tool is the watercolor brush. It is a tool used for pricking and pouncing to pass pattern. It is a traditional method used to transfer prints and designs on fabrics. Next is the tracing paper, which is a tool used to trace the designs. It's a great way to transfer a design to fabric without actually making marks on the fabric, making it well suited for use on delicate or non-washable fabrics. Sewing box is where embroidery tools and materials are being kept together. Typically, a sewing box is designed with a number of divisions to make it easier to organize the contents. Sewing boxes may take the form of literal boxes in a variety of shapes and sizes. Sewing bag is a tool made of washable material and is used to keep your work clean. It is a valuable tool that can be used for many purposes, including repairing clothing and accessories. Materials are what we call consumables. It is intended to be used up relatively quickly. First is fabric. It is often called as fabric is of great variety and differs in material, weight, weaving, style, color, and finish. There are 3 different types of fabric: the common weave, even weave, and basket weave. Common weave comprises the tightest woven fabrics with a smooth surface, such as linen, wool, and cotton. The most common weaves are the plain weave and the twill weave. A plain weave is where the weft yarn crosses over one yarn and under the next. This is the weave that we see the most. Even weave is intended for hardanger embroidery where the threads are the same for warp and woof per square inch. Even weave implies that the weave of the linen is even, with both the warp and weft threads numbering approximately the same in either direction. Basket weave. One example is the Rami linen. It is commonly used by beginners. It offers instructions for cross-stitching and smocking, having a pattern that is equally spaced like gingham fabric and polka dots. The basket weave pattern is a variation of the plain weaving style of making woven fabrics. The pattern is a result of adding more than one filling and or warp yarns. Next is the thread. It has various types that differ in texture, color, number of strands, and fiber content. Threads are normally coded in numbers and in colors. Thank you for listening.